Oddity was a little film that came out in 2024. It's a supernatural thriller about a blind medium who travels to her late twin sister's home to uncover the truth behind her sister's brutal murder. With her, she brings a disturbing wooden mannequin from her antique shop, a relic that once belonged to their mother that seems to harbor secrets of its own. As she delves deeper into the house's dark history, the lines between the living and the dead begin to blur, unraveling a story of grief, vengeance, and the unseen forces that refuse to rest. So I chose this film to be the next part of my 52-week horror movie challenge under the prompt to find a movie that was paranormal. So out of every single prompt that exists in the book, this is the one that probably is the most broad of the bunch and the one that I've seen probably the most movies from. I love paranormal films. This one, however, I went to a friend for a recommendation because I wanted to see something I've never seen before, and he recommended Oddity, which he loved. And other than seeing maybe the poster float around here and there, I knew nothing about it. And overall, I would say that it was a strong recommendation. This movie is dark, it is mysterious, it's eerie, and yes, I do believe it was scary at points. So as usual, let's break this up into the positives and the negatives. I think the first positive is also kind of an elephant in the room, which is the wooden mannequin. This thing is seen in the trailer, it's seen in the poster, it's seen pretty much everywhere in terms of marketing, but little is known about it. Even when you're watching the movie itself, little is known about this wooden mannequin, but it is kind of the reason you keep watching. You're like, what is up with the wooden mannequin? Apart from it looking disturbing, there is definitely something going on with the wooden mannequin. There's a reason that it is there, and I personally am not going to spoil that for you. Would I love to? Absolutely, but not today. All I can really say is that this thing is amazing. There's no other way to put it. It's amazing. It's awesome. It's amazing for marketing appeal, obviously, because that's what got people to watch the movie in the first place. And it's also amazing for its mysterious role that it plays in the film. It's actually the thing in the movie that changes it from being a premise that we've seen a million times before into something that we've never seen before. Because at the end of the day, this movie does have a very typical premise, but its approach swerves pretty substantially away from that typical premise. Now, this wooden mannequin can sometimes come off as a gimmick because it takes forever to explain to the audience what it is and why it's there. And when things take this long to explain to the audience, they start to think that there's really no point. It's there just to be a gimmick. It's just there to be a MacGuffin for the audience to wonder what the heck is going on. But I do think that there's just enough there for an audience to latch onto and to ultimately be engaged from beginning to end. And if you do watch it to the end, I think you won't be disappointed in the reveal, essentially. The next positive would be the structure. I found the structure in this movie to be really interesting. At the very beginning of the movie, it doesn't explain anything to the audience. You don't really know what in the world is going on, who this person is, or how they relate to anything. It's as the film progresses that they start to explain things one by one. I don't always love when a movie does this, but I did actually appreciate how Oddity approached it. Just like everything else, just like how they approached the wooden mannequin, just like they approached the premise and the structure. Everything really came down to approach here. Because, I mean, yeah, the movie does answer all of your questions eventually. It just doesn't spill the tea right from the get-go. It just might offer you a little bit at the beginning to the point where you might think you know what's going on, but you really don't. And I love that they did this because had they done it any other way, had they approached it like every other movie on the planet would have approached it, it would have immediately felt predictable, and it probably would have been predictable. Now, I will be honest, once it hits a certain point in the film, I don't know if it's around the halfway mark or just a little bit after that, it does become predictable after it gets past all of its main reveals. But at that point, you're going downhill. At that point, you're in it to win it. So it's not that much of a complaint. Another positive about the film would probably be its darkness. Now, this is a film that is physically dark, but it's also atmospherically and thematically dark. You have a character that is blind, so she personally cannot see anything. And to mirror that, we have a lot of stuff going on in the film that is physically dark, kind of hard to see. It digs deep into those fears that you might have had as a kid, from fears of the dark. It has some dark themes when it comes down to domestic relationships. The list goes on and on and on. It's definitely a movie that digs deep into the core of darkness and what that ultimately means and why we find that scary. Now, when we come down to the negatives, where does this film falter? I do believe predictability comes into play here. Now, like I said, I did find a good chunk of the movie unpredictable, especially the first half or so. After that, though, it comes to a point where it feels like I could have probably written it because I almost feel like it writes itself into a corner. It's not a huge shade on what the film does because I think even though it does become predictable, it is still a lot of fun to watch it unfold anyway. But again, I do believe that they wrote themselves into a little bit of a corner because their characters are a little bit flat. They're not very complex. They're kind of archetypal characters, right? When you think about heroes and villains and sidekicks and all these types of archetypes in all the different stereotypes of screenwriting, a lot of these characters come off exactly like that. They feel very stereotypical. They feel very flat. The story's great, but the characters needed help. A lot of the characters, I feel like, from the get-go, had no other option than to do what they did because they were not complex. It's sometimes hard to explain the flaws that their characters had, but it is a problem that I think was an easy fix that they just didn't deal with. And once you figure out that the characters are essentially just archetypal and nothing more, nothing less, that is when the movie becomes incredibly predictable. That is the moment where you're like, oh, I guess the characters aren't gonna do anything complex or groundbreaking. And again, not a huge shade. Again, the way the movie carries itself is incredibly well done. It's just you don't want predictability in anything that you watch. At the end of the day, what did I score Oddity? I gave it a 75 out of 100 possible star rating. That is a B letter grade on my letter grading system. Overall, it was a good time, good experience, good entertaining horror film. I just wish that they kept the momentum that existed in the first half of the film and carried it all the way throughout the rest. That being said, I would still consider this movie pretty rewatchable overall. But what about you guys though? Have you seen Oddity? Is this one of your favorites? Why or why not? And as for YouTube, you guys know what to do. Hit the like, subscribe button, and bell to be notified when I come out with my next movie review, whenever or whatever that may be on. And until that day comes, peace out.